Dang, you guys are choosing war today. We just started. We got a bunch of horns downs in the chat. We got some Longhorn hate in the chat. Jeb's on a date tonight. Good luck to Jeb. Guys, how y'all doing tonight? Of course, we have to start the show with some horns down, right? It's in the news. It's topical. They react to it, so we talk about it. Did you guys see the latest horns down headline? Barstool TCU is donating 500 horns down t-shirts to the student section for their game against Texas on Friday. This, of course, coming after the horns down BYU student section t-shirt sign. Beautiful. Well done. Look, they say they don't care about it, but it always gets brought up. They always bring up, they always react to it. It triggers them. It works. It does what it's intended to do. Not hate, just facts, says DB374. That'll get the juices flowing. Thanks for the facts tonight, guys. It's not hate, it's just facts. Horns down is just fact. It's set in stone. It is written. Horns down is the correct logo, guys. Maybe some hate, says DB. But guys, I was on a different podcast a couple days ago. It's called The Red Shirt Sophomore. It's an up-and-coming podcast by a couple of dudes. One's an Aggie, one's a Minnesota Gopher. They have great perspective of the national landscape of college football. They know their stuff. I recommend checking them out. I'll post a link to that show when it drops tomorrow. They asked me to come on and talk about what Elko's done so far with his staff and the portal acquisitions, keeping this class together as well as it can. Of course, there's another big name coming up we're all going to wait for next week for signing day. But after talking about some of these names, some of the stuff Elko's done in short order, I wanted to reflect. It's been a crazy 2 months, man. It was just over 2 months ago we were square in the Jimbo Fisher era, thinking about how this team's going to improve, wondering if Jimbo had what it took with this team or his team when he was still here to actually make some noise in 2024, which of course was a year that we had circled based on that 2022 class growing up, becoming juniors, and knowing that the schedule doesn't feature Bama, Georgia, Ole Miss, who's good now, Tennessee, who's good, manageable schedule, good roster, but could Jimbo do it? That's where we were a couple of months ago. Jimbo gets fired. I thought that Jimbo would have another year. I thought for sure that Jimbo was going to be around until 25-ish, the start of the year 25, end of the year 24, if things were going to go that route. They got rid of him early. So since 2022, we had kind of been feeling like things were shaky. We were thinking, man, is this not going to work out with Jimbo? Things looked so good the first 3 years. All of a sudden, things aren't looking so good. We start thinking about, like, what are the next steps? What are the moves? Like I said, I'm thinking Jimbo's here for a couple more years. Meanwhile, Mike Elko is off to an amazing start at Duke. And since the 2022 season started, well, the App State game, if it was on your bingo card for me to mention App State tonight, congrats. I hate it. I mentioned it. Yeah, App State. From that point forward, I was thinking it's a damn shame that I don't think Mike Elko's timeline is going to line up with when Jimbo would potentially be fired. Because like I said, I thought Jimbo would be around through 25 at least. I thought Elko was going to be the hottest name in the coaching market. I thought he was going to be like the Kalen DeBoer name after a couple of years at Duke, or like Brian Kelly leaving Cincinnati, or like whoever went from a mid-level, mid-high level program to the next like top tier program, like Kelly to Notre Dame, DeBoer to Bama, Fickle to Wisconsin, I guess, something like that. I was like, oh, it's not going to line up. I really want Elko. What he did at A&M was amazing as the coordinator. The way players talked about him, the players he put in the league, was so high on Elko through all of 2022. But I didn't think it was going to happen because I thought Jimbo was going to stick around for a while. Then 2023, obviously shaky year. Not as terrible as 2022, but it definitely didn't make us feel any better after 2022, if that makes sense. I, again, did not think Jimbo would be gone. I thought he'd be here to the end of the year. He gets fired after Mississippi State. You guys remember, we all know. The coaching search begins. All these names enter the chat. You know, we had the Kalen DeBoer was like the dream. Jeff Traylor's name entered. A bunch of other names. I make videos on YouTube, so I'm like Urban Meyer or Lane Kiffin just to put the dialogue out there, just to get crazy. I have to get crazy sometimes when I'm doing this stuff. The name Mike Elko, you may have heard me say this before, at that time, kind of soured, kind of got stale. I guess I got shiny object syndrome. I wanted the next shiny name, the next big name. And I didn't think it was Elko. I wasn't opposed to Elko, but I definitely had shiny object syndrome looking elsewhere. The weeks go on. It turned out A&M didn't really have a direct plan. I guess the plan was to get a jump on the market, get rid of Jimbo a couple of weeks before the season starts ending. So as soon as the season ends, the regular season ends, you're knocking on the doorstep of whichever coach you want to talk to. And I was just not feeling Elko. I just wasn't into it. It just wasn't exciting. Then Mark Stoops happens. The Mark Stoops era begins out of nowhere. And then it ended. It lasted about 3 hours. It was done. The next day, Mike Elko. We've talked about it. The relief factor of that alone, going from Mark Stoops to Mike Elko, made the Elko hire feel that much better, because it was like, it could have been this. I guess we stumbled on Mike Elko. We happened to land on it. Ross Bjork, I mean, say what you will about Ross Bjork. Now, 2 months later, in hindsight, when he said that it felt like we were stuck in mud, or it felt like we were in the slow part of traffic behind a slow car, feeling what I'm feeling right now with all the acquisitions, this time of the football year anyway is crazy. Things are moving like crazy. Contrasting that to how we felt 2 months ago, I do feel like we were stuck in mud. I do feel like we were in the slow side of traffic, not moving forward, not propelling forward. Because Elko's put in some damn work, guys. In this other podcast I was doing, we talked about the staff, we talked about the players, talked about the portal players. I can only speak for myself, but I think Mike Elko has absolutely surpassed my expectations. And I don't really know exactly what I expected on paper, like signee for signee, coaching hire for coaching hire. But now as everything's coming together and we're sitting back and we're looking at it all on our notepads, all the names we had written down, all the names we acquired, all the players that have entered the program, like 40 new guys entering this program, probably more than 40 players entering the program, a whole new coaching staff. As a whole, Mike Elko did better than I thought he would have. And I had pretty high hopes based on just his track record at A&M and what he was doing at Duke, and just he was in such high regard amongst people who knew what they were talking about, if you know what I mean. So looking at this staff, and guys, check out that podcast dropping tomorrow. We go in deep on the staff, on the portal. But if you look at this staff, it is so well fleshed out, man. Every part of this staff, in my opinion, has at least a slight needle mover, at least. And when I say a needle mover, I mean improvement from before. And I think there are some guys that still need to prove themselves. There are some guys that are younger guys, maybe up-and-comers. We talked about the hungry dog. A lot of hungry dogs in the staff compared to Jimbo's previous staff. Maybe had some guys that had baggage, maybe some satisfied dogs in Jimbo. Maybe Adazio's on his way out of his career. Bobby Petrino, maybe. The players he got in the portal. I mean, you knew that this team had to go acquire some guys, because when you lose a coach, you lose players, you got to fill it out. But first of all, the quantity of guys that were gotten, how quickly it came together in this portal class. It's just some of the guys at the top, like getting Nick Scorton and Des Ricks, Will Lee, Cassius Howell. Some of these guys are just really, really good and promising dudes. So I asked you guys as the show was starting, and I'm asking you again, if you could type it in chat. If you're lurking, I want to hear your opinion on this. Did Mike Elko exceed your expectations? Whatever you were expecting. Is it about what you thought? Is it even better? Is it maybe a little bit worse? Did you have really high hopes for Elko? Because damn, man, things are looking really, really promising compared to how I felt even when Jimbo was still here and we were going into next year with all that talent. Elko's playing ball, man. the staff he put together quickly, the team he's putting together quickly. Spring ball is going to be a freaking movie, guys. Oh, man. It really made me reflect. Just thinking about the parts together and then now seeing it all. And by the way, Mike Elko is out on a recruiting trip right now. Theo, you're in chat. I see you. Ted, he's in California today, and he has the final Terry Bussey visit this weekend. So he ain't slowing down. Obviously, I think this is a big week for contact for visiting players in the 2025 class. Maybe a little bit more smoke to happen in this 2024 class. We had some hints from Bronny on TexAgs today. Nuno asked him, do you expect any fireworks? Kind of felt like Bronny knew something was going on, but he wouldn't say. He's not saying one way or another. He's saying to look out for it. He said stay tuned, I think was his words. Go check it out if you haven't. The insiders, they might know something. So, guys, I want to hear your opinions on Elko and how you feel at this point, now that we're kind of getting out of the crazy season of football. The crazy season, I think it ends next Wednesday, and then we're in the doldrums, man. We're gonna reflect on spring, talk about upcoming spring game and all that. Look at that soon. But this is the long 6-7 months that's about to start. So, guys, let's say what's up to everybody in the chat. I have a couple more topics to get into. By the way, this is a call-in show, guys. The call-in link is posted in the chat. It's at the top. You click the link. You enter a waiting room. You'll be prompted to activate your mic. Don't activate your video. We don't use that function. And then I'll pull you guys in one-on-one. We'll talk Aggie football live on YouTube. So I want to hear what you guys have to say about Elko. I have one other question for you guys. We'll get to that after we go through the chat. Anti-Ag here. Good to see you, Anti-Ag. Lash, of course. Lash drops a horns down right away. Beautiful. You love to see it. Jeb, friend of the program, can't make it tonight. Very sad for Jeb. Except he's on a date tonight. So good luck to Jeb. I hope you score. I hope you score on your date as big as Elko has scored in the portal and in the coaching market. That was terrible, but seriously, I hope you have as good luck as Elko did. Wish me luck. Good luck, Jeb. Sawyer in the house. Good to see you, Sawyer. What up, everybody? I saw Jalen Henderson today while I was walking to class. That's awesome. I loved whenever I would see players. For some reason, I saw Kingsley Kiki and Kendrick Rogers like 6 times each. I guess our schedules just lined up when I was in school. That was pretty cool. But good to see you, Sawyer. Glad you're here. John Peroni, good to see you, man. Duke Pastrami from Monterey. Good to see you, Duke Pastrami. John Peroni answering the question. He sure exceeded expectations so far. I hope they do good on the field this season. I meant to say that before my monologue. We're stopping to smell the roses right now, but we're really not going to truly judge what Elko is until we see the results, because that's really what matters. But I think it's okay to stop and smell the roses and gauge things as they come. So, absolutely, John Peroni, thanks for bringing that up. We need to win. And we'll maybe talk about that a little bit today, too. Sawyer says he absolutely has. I honestly think we have a shot at winning 10 games. Maybe I'm a little bit too optimistic. Look, optimism is a toxic drug in the world of Aggie football. It's the same as hope. It always creeps its way into your mind. It always does. But, man, it is hard not to be more optimistic after just how successful Elko has been building the foundation for his program. And the way you worded that, a shot at winning 10 games, I don't think that phraseology, I don't think that's too optimistic. I think this team has a shot at winning 10 games. Right now, I'm not making a prediction yet, but I would say 8 or 9 is where I'm at because, like I said already, the schedule is manageable. It's not easy, but it's doable. You got LSU, Texas, Notre Dame, Missouri, your 4 toughest games at home. There's some tough road games. Shane Beamer, he's been doing pretty good at South Carolina. This is their first bad year last year. Remember, the first 2 years that Shane Beamer was at South Carolina, they exceeded expectations. They beat A&M. So I wouldn't sleep on going there. Definitely don't sleep on going to Auburn before Texas. That's like the week before the Texas games. We go to Auburn. Hugh Freeze is building a program. It's a weird place to play. There's some roadblocks. Going to the swamp early is going to be tough. There are 10 wins on this schedule. There are. Now, are they going to accomplish that? I don't know. But Sawyer, I don't think you're being too optimistic. DB says, this is a very... God, this statement is it's really well thought out. And I really like where he went with it. The ebbs and the flows of this statement, it's masterful. I hate Longhorns, he says. That one will make you think. It'll make you think horns down. Good to see you, DB. Duke Pastrami says 8-4 floor, 12-0 possible, 9-3 probable. Okay, Duke. Guys, don't be scared. I agree with your former two statements. Unfortunately, just the way the schedule is, I do think there are, like I said, there are 10 wins on this schedule. Hell, there are 12 wins on this schedule. But I also think there are like 6 possible losses on this schedule. We don't know yet. We have to see it come together. But I get where you're coming from. And if you think that what Elko's doing now translates to immediate success, what you're saying is not far off. 8-4 floor. I don't think it's unreasonable to say that. I just think if I'm being super cautious and like just, you know, covering my bases, I unfortunately do see 6 possible losses on the schedule. Because like I said, it doesn't really have those traps. It doesn't really have those spikes in it. But there's some tough games. I mean, Missouri at home, LSU at home. I mean, you could lose those games. You could lose those. When's the last time A&M won a road game? Been a while. And while your road games, your easier conference games do happen to be on the road this year, still a road game. A&M still has not been successful. The last road win was Missouri. Bad Missouri in 2021. So it's still got a ways to go. Ted in here says, hit the like button, folks. Yeah, guys, if you could like and subscribe, that would help me greatly. Thanks, Ted, for saying that. Good to see you in here, man. TMJ says he has exceeded expectations so far, and that's a good way to put it. We need to see the results. Yes. DB, you can reach out to me. I have my email posted on, I don't know if it's posted on the live shows, but if you go to any one of my videos, my email is linked in all of my videos. I don't know if I have it saved on the live show, though. So if you go to any of my previous videos, you'll see my email in there. And you can always DM me on X, guys. If y'all want to follow me on X, it's the same name as here, @DrewTamu. I reply to all DMs. If you tag me, I'll respond to you. Sometimes it takes me time to see things, but I'll respond to you. So either there or email. Gary Mertens, good to see you, Gary, regular viewer. I've always had high respect for Elko, so I expected a lot, but he has indeed exceeded expectations. Right. And I'm not, yeah, that's a good point. I didn't come into this with low expectations at all. I thought Elko would have success, but he's done even better than that. And I'm not saying, I mean, I think you get like he's not like Nick Saban, right? If you get Nick Saban in here, you're going to get all the players. But for what Mike Elko is and where this program was, you feel like he exceeded expectations. All right. Space Jesus says, I've been impressed with Elmo getting the bad apples off the team. My phone does the same thing. I cannot stop it from correcting Elko to Elmo. There's some way you can do it, but I haven't done it either. I've been impressed with Elko getting the bad apples off the team. You need to set a good culture. You could tell Jimbo phoned it in towards the end. For sure. And we actually talk about that in that podcast I was telling you guys about that'll drop tomorrow. Like I said, I'm going to post a clip from the podcast, so make sure y'all watch that on my channel. And then in the description of that clip I'm going to post, there'll be a link to the full, it's an hour show. So check that out. And then when y'all go watch that show, make sure you guys like and subscribe to their channel. They're growing. They're small right now, but these guys know their stuff. They're young. I think they're both in school. They have potential to be a really good show, and they're good dudes, so I recommend them. All right. So we have one caller waiting. If you guys want to get in, we have pretty open phone lines behind Theo. If not, we'll keep the show short tonight. I have a couple more things to go through before we get to the callers. So obviously we have National Signing Day coming right up around the corner. It is next Wednesday. Obviously there's one name that we're looking at. We're hoping for more fireworks, but it's the Terry Bussey show, right? So if you didn't know, I'm sure if you're watching this show, if you're one of the guys watching Drew Tamu on a Thursday night at 8 p.m., you probably are in the know. Bussey has been an Aggie lock since he committed in September. He hasn't wavered from that commitment. Insiders will say that A&M's been the favorite. That's never changed. There's never been any kind of info that would make you think that's changing. However, after a coaching change like A&M went through, after he was recruited by the former staff for however long they recruited him, you're always a little nervous, especially when you're a high-profile player like that draws attention from programs like Georgia and LSU, the other two schools that are in the race based on his visits and based just on the information that's out there. He visited Georgia a couple weekends ago. He visited LSU recently. He actually visited LSU for a short trip yesterday. And then A&M gets the coveted final visit this weekend. So do you guys think we hold on to Bussey? That's my first question. Do you think we do it? I'm not an insider, like I always say. But if I had to bet, I would say he still puts the A&M hat on. And I would put my confidence level of that 70% confidence. So I'm not 100% on this. I'm not 100% sure he's going to do it. LSU is making an all-hands-on-deck push for this guy. Actually, this leads me to my cryptic tweet of the night, which is a segment on this show brought to you by nobody. No sponsors. And this isn't actually cryptic. This is just a viral tweet that was going around the LSU circle, and of course it dipped into the A&M circle. Unfortunately, Jardin Gilbert, former Aggie, tweeted this out with a little gigam emoji. Very disrespectful. You coming too? Back like I never left. Welcome to your new home. Been coming home. Home is where the heart is. And these are all guys that were either former Aggies or recruited by A&M that ended up at LSU. Bottom right corner, Terry Bussey with the wait for me. They're all hands on deck. It sucks that Jardin posted this, trolling the Ags after he leaves. I don't need to pull up the Miami film. We all remember it. Whatever. I'm not here to dog on him. It's his prerogative. It's his right. They're trying hard, man. And if it's not A&M, that other 30% I have, I'm 70% confident it's A&M. The other 30%, it's all LSU. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be surprised if he flips just based on coaching change. LSU recruits great. But I'm still betting my salary on the Ags if I had to bet. What do you guys think? And also, another question. We've gone back and forth on this show. What position is Terry going to play when he's here? Does it even matter? He's going to impact the game wherever he plays. He does everything on the field. He literally can do anything. I mean, he could play quarterback, receiver, running back, anywhere in the secondary. He's that kind of a football player. He's the real deal. So initially, I've been team corner for Bussey. Bussey, the cornerback, hole on the team, plug him in there. You've lost some corners. You lost Grimes. You lost Deuce Harmon. I feel like Chappelle's going to come back. He hasn't announced it yet. We don't know. But you got all these guys in the portal now. You have a good chance at a really good duo emerging from all the bodies you have in that room now, not to mention the guys that were on the team before who are going to be maturing and getting into their second or third years or what have you within the program. Receivers a little bit more thin. You do have a couple of exciting guys in the portal. The guy from Troy, the guy from La Tech. Those guys can play. You have Tees, but then you have your starting three. Could Bussey go and be a day one playmaker at receiver? Could he slot in at running back? Running backs, we're expecting them to progress. But if the running backs were what they were last year, that's not enough to move the needle this year. We expect that they will progress. But could you plug Bussey in at running back if you need a big play threat there? Could Bussey return kicks? I don't know. As part of the pitch, you tell Bussey, dude, play wherever you want. We have openings everywhere. Wherever you want to play, we'll give you a chance there. I don't think he'll be here at spring, so it's going to be like a fall camp deal. They're going to have to figure it out fast. Or just don't even worry about it. Just play the dude wherever. It's Terry freaking Bussey, guys. All right, let's see what you guys are saying. Anti-Ag says, Jimbo deserved another year. A&M was too impatient. Deserved? Didn't deserve anything. He got his money. Gary says, the portal numbers and ratings speak for themselves, yes. Players are collectively saying he's no nonsense. Others indicate he's extremely organized and hardworking. Absolutely. And that has been a vibe that we're getting from insiders, the guys that talk to the players. Obviously, TexAgs interviews the players weekly. Everyone is saying he's no nonsense. Everyone is commending him for that aspect. And we knew that going in, but now that that's being echoed by the guys that are being coached by him or talking to him daily, it's really getting stamped in right now. That's evident in how successful he's been so far and how busy he's been so far. It's crazy. It's kind of funny because the dude, I forget his name, but the Boston College coach, if y'all haven't heard, he just left for an NFL job to be a DC. he left a perfectly good job at Boston College. And he said that he left because of the new landscape of college football. There's too much going on. There are too many non-football things that you have to do now as a college coach. And Josh Pate and others have indicated that there will be more to follow for those same reasons. Coaches leaving the college ranks because they don't want to deal with NIL. They don't want to deal with the Wild West that is college football right now, and probably will be college football for the next maybe 10 years or so before this thing finally gets regulated in some capacity. Mike Elko don't give a shit. He's in here doing it all. You love to see it. He's playing the game, man. That's just awesome. But yes, the portal numbers speak for themselves. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Crypto, I appreciate your honesty here. I really do. I want to hear this from you guys. If you think he's going to LSU, that helps me either be excited when he picks A&M or not shocked when he doesn't pick A&M. Crypto Z says, I hate it, but I think he goes to LSU. And like I said, that wouldn't surprise me, unfortunately. Antiag says, college football recruiting is gross. It is. Guys, I love talking about it. I'm not an insider again, but I love talking and watching recruiting. I will never be a recruiting insider or recruiting expert. I'll reflect on what has happened or what is happening at the forefront because I honestly think college recruiting is a little gross and it's a little bit broken. It's obviously broken. I mean, it's held in the regard of a professional sport, college football is. It has the popularity. It does the numbers of a professional sport. It draws the eyes. It makes the money of a professional sport. But the players aren't treated like professionals in the way talent is acquired or the way talent moves around now in the portal. I mean, think about it. Every year in professional sports, if you have a bad year, you're getting a good draft pick and you actually have a path to rebuild. You have a chance to get the best players out there just because you're bad. College sports can't do that. You got 140 teams. You can't have a 140 player draft. You can't have Terry Bussey going to South Alabama or whoever it is. I don't know. Whoever 138 is. It just doesn't work like that. No contracts. Well, ask Tennessee. That's kind of a hot topic. But no formal contracts in college football. Players can just up and leave at any time. They could just sit out and not play, move on to the next place, and just play like nothing happened. It's weird, man. It's weird. You have to court these young guys. You have to court them. You have to make promises that maybe you can't fulfill. Maybe you have to take a gamble with making promises to some of these guys. I agree with you, Antiag. College football recruiting is gross, but sadly, I am addicted. If Bussey is focused on playing D, he'll land with Elko. Good point. And one positive that we've mentioned before, Holman Wiggins was his primary recruiter at Alabama. Obviously, he's at A&M now. So that's positive. Nick Scorton is Bussey's cousin. Another positive for A&M. Plus, he picked A&M first. He did pick A&M the school first. Of course, he was recruited by Jimbo's staff. But he also picked the school. Maybe it's 50-50 there in that ratio of school to coaching staff, what a player is going to a school or a program for. He did pick A&M. But, yeah, Elko's definitely the defensive option there. But maybe Holman Wiggins can make him think, okay, there's offensive options at A&M too. I have a feeling we're going to see him on both or all three sides of the ball, special teams, offense, and defense, at times throughout his career. I don't think we're going to go Travis Hunter where he plays every down on both sides. But I think he plays both sides. If Bussey takes his official visit this weekend to Aggieland, he will sign with us. Yeah, guys, I mean, that would be terrible if he doesn't. Like, he did get a last-minute visit with LSU yesterday, and maybe part of that was, okay, don't go to A&M, we're going to give you this deal. Maybe, I don't know. It's a toxic game. It could be on the table. All right, guys. Oh, one more thing. I just blinked on the name, but the Arkansas 4-star receiver just rescinded his letter of intent. He's a really, really good, sought-after high school receiver. A&M had the last visit with him before he committed to Arkansas. And A&M is currently the favorite to land him next Wednesday. So if you could get Bussey, and maybe someone in the chat can help me with the name here because I'm terrible, as usual, with names. But if you can get those two guys on signing day, Elko will have accomplished the big three of building a staff, building your first portal class, and building a really good transition recruiting class. I mean, can you imagine if he lands those two guys on signing day, and then maybe you throw in like some surprise third guy? He already got the tackle flip from Duke a couple of weeks ago. That was huge and unexpected. I mean, can you imagine if he makes this a top 15 recruiting class as well? It's on the table. It's possible. All right, guys. I still only have one caller. If it's just Theo tonight, it's just going to be Theo. That's fine. We'll call it a short show. But, guys, phone lines are open if you want to call in. Link is in the chat. All right. Theo, you're on with Drew, man. Let's get right to it. How you feeling and how you, at this point, reflecting on Elko? Has he exceeded your expectations, or where are you at with it?
I'm doing well, my friend. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited. This is the last of like the busy season of college football before things get quiet. So I'm enjoying these last couple of days and really hoping we get Bussey.
I am too. I'll be really disappointed if we don't get Bussey. With the number of connections to A&M that Bussey has,
Right.
from his uncle being an A&M graduate to Scranton being his cousin, it fits. It fits like a family glove. So if he doesn't choose us, I'm going to be heartbroken. Um, I actually know the offensive coordinator for Timpson. I watched him play ball at East Texas Baptist University when I was there. So, like, it just feels like a family fit, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, it's crazy.
Yeah, and all those factors would make it even more painful if we don't land him and he goes to a rival. I mean, that's all part of it.
And to LSU at that. Like,
I know. It's like the two that feel worse when we lose a flip. It's LSU and Texas, right? Like those are the two worst feeling ones.
well, before this recruiting cycle, I really wasn't worried about LSU like that. Um, I didn't really have hard feelings towards LSU like that. Like, yeah, they were a rival, but I didn't hate LSU. Like, I hate Oklahoma. I hate Texas. I hate Baylor. I hate,
I love it. I love it. I love
I
your hate.
hate Tech,
Yeah.
but I don't. But LSU was just kind of like that school that was like, well, they're in the same region, you know. It's just not the same as the way I hate Arkansas and some of the other like what I deem more important rivals. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so the question I would have to that is what changed? What you said up until this cycle? Is it because of all
All of
the
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 guys,
flips or the guys that have changed from A&M to LSU now?
yes, really, it is because um, those guys I feel like are going to a sinking program. I really do not see
Ooh.
LSU doing what they've done under past coaches like Oregon, and even Saban, and you know, um,
Even less
God, I can't think of
miles?
the other guy, Les Miles. I don't see Kelly to be that type of coach. He feels grimy and slimy.
Yeah.
Duh. He feels really slimy. And then I just feel like he's never had the defense. He hasn't figured out the defense of the SEC yet, in terms of how to build one.
Yeah.
Now, he had a pretty good one at Notre Dame for a few years and stuff, but that's different. That's Midwest football. That's not South football. You
Yeah.
can't build the same type of defense.
Yeah. They
Um,
were really bad last year. Really bad on defense.
Horrible.
Yeah. They kind of
And really,
messed
when I
up. They
looked at the
messed up um what's his name? The linebacker that was committed, Perkins. They messed up his second
yes,
year. They moved him from outside to like middle linebacker, dropping him back in coverage more. They weren't using him to rush the passer
hmm
as much or getting involved in the running game as much, and that's where he was really strong. And they just took him out of that.
hmm exactly. And then, like, overall, we know LSU has a really good, talented defensive line, but even last year in our game against them, we dominated their defensive line
Oh yeah.
with the bad offensive line.
Oh yeah.
So, I don't. I think that Kelly got lucky that Jaden Daniels was there, to go along with guys like Malik Neighbors.
Yeah.
um, to have the success that they had last year. And I kind of feel like that's where they're going to be. They're going to consistently be at that um, 8, 9, 10 range, and LSU expects more. So I really don't see that out of that thing. And so now he's going to get guys that I feel that could have really competed and put us over the top here with the new coach, and guys that were long term commits. I mean, some of those guys were committed since August and June and July. Like,
Right.
that hurt. Um,
It hurts, but part of that's LSU. Part of that is the regionality of it. But the main factor was just the coaching turnover we had. I mean, that's going to result in that kind of a thing. But yeah, of course it's LSU. So yeah, I honestly am expecting kind of like a 9-win year from LSU next year, 8 or 9. But I still have people thinking that LSU can win it every year, and I just don't see that right now from them. We're on a tangent right now, but that's okay. How many wins do you think LSU gets next year right now?
if I had to guess right now, um, they're in the same boat as us, somewhere between 7 and 9.
Yeah.
I can see them dropping. They still got Bama, they still got to go to Arkansas, they still got Florida, they still got it's either Tennessee or Kentucky. They
They
still got a really tough slate, um,
they go to A&M.
and they come to us.
Yeah.
So um, I and they lost so much. Like, if I'm not mistaken, they've lost like two of their starting guards after our replacing their tackles last year. Um, the whole defensive line, from what I understand, is gone or were gone.
Yeah.
Um, their cornerback room is atrocious. Their safety room and secondary room was atrocious. Um, so it's really, that linebacking core is their strength, and they can't really do anything without a D line in front of them.
Yep. Yep. And last year, I mean, let's just be honest, what made their team was Neighbors and Jalen Daniels and Brian Thomas, and they're all gone. That was their team.
Yeah,
That's what made them successful last year. If they don't have that level, if they get good quarterback play last year, because remember, Jaden Daniels, he passed for like 3,700 and ran for like 1,200. Insane year.
yeah,
If they
yeah.
get good quarterback play like 3,000 and 7,000, that they might have a couple more losses. They might have lost to A&M. We probably would have beaten them because we were having success in that
Hmm.
game. So they're losing that, and yeah, that bodes really poorly for them next year. But anyway, Theo, I wanted to get your opinion on. I mean, obviously, I know you're very plugged in to everything A&M. Where does the program stand based on your expectations when we got Elko? Did they exceed your expectations? Is it pretty much what you expected, or is this maybe better than what you thought would happen in terms of the hires and the success in the portal, and then just the final recruiting class we're looking at,
Um,
and the vibe?
I The whole 9 yards is exceeding my expectation. Um, I expected us to lose more. Honestly, I thought we were going to lose more in the portal. Um, I'm really impressed with who we got out of the portal. It feels like he targeted um, distinct pieces. Like, he has a plan for him. He didn't just go out there and go get a guy because he played at Tennessee or because he played at Bama.
100%.
Uh, we see Sark doing that at Texas. He just went and picked up guys from Bama and this guy from there and this guy from there that is at a big Power Five school, which is all great and dandy. But if you don't pick guys that fit what you're gonna do and fit the mold that you're gonna do, then what's the point of picking these guys? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, even a kid like Wright out of Vanderbilt, he has a distinct role that I can see him filling, that hybrid linebacker, um, safety role,
The
and
dude's
actually do a
huge.
really
It's crazy. He's huge. He can play wherever you want to play him.
right and have coverage skills to play, the slot and or deep, and then also be at the line of scrimmage as a force player.
Yeah.
Um, it's just amazing what he did there, And then I've been really impressed with how Elko has established recruiting pipelines, or at least has looked to establish recruiting pipelines um, in areas that I didn't think he would be interested in, or reestablishing interest in.
Yep.
For years under Jimbo, we neglected the California West Coast kids, and yet here he is, even today, visiting Mater Dei, and their 5-star number one linebacker in California,
Yep.
and their quarterback. And then getting um, offering another linebacker out of St. John Bosco to go with Lockhart, who is from that area. And then you also see him in Dallas Fort Worth with Riggins, and then reestablishing uh, Houston with Petaway. And it's just the way he's moved so quickly to reestablish these recruiting pipelines has really impressed me.
Yeah.
And it feels like there's a lot of excitement around the program and recruiting again that wasn't there towards the end of the Jimbo era.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. It's kind of funny. I mean, like I just said, that coach, like just a couple days ago or yesterday from Boston College, moved on to the NFL because of pretty much everything that Elko is going all hands on deck with right now. All the extra stuff that comes with college football, the portal. I'm sure there's a lot of NIL stuff that he's involved with, recruiting, building a staff, dealing with turnover. Elko he's doing this all willingly, and he's going above and beyond. And it's crazy. I love to hear these interviews with these players talking about how Elko is holding them all accountable. And as time goes on, we're hearing more and more that accountability wasn't a priority under Jimbo's system or staff. And that's all we're getting from these players right now is he means business. He doesn't take crap. And that's just one aspect of it. It's multifaceted. You have to be multifaceted. You have so many hats you have to put on as the coach these days. But it's just crazy to see him do it all in such short order. So, I mean, yeah, man, it's been crazy.
It's really impressive, honestly. He's really exceeded expectations of where I thought we would be right now, in terms of the coaching change, etc. It's just now if only we can find an AD that can stick with him for more than 4 years and give us some kind of continuity there in our athletic programs.
I know, man. I don't think I've talked to you since the last, or one specific hire. This is one that I talked to on this other podcast. You're going to hear us talk about it a lot. But the Jordan Peterson hire for defensive back, just kind of going under the radar. But he brings like a lot of pedigree in his short career and his short time at Kansas. I don't know if anybody realizes it, but he was the number one recruiting coach out of the Big 12 last year that wasn't from OU or Texas. So if you're of all the coaches that weren't OU or Texas coaches, he was the best recruiter based on the commits that he got as the primary. Not only that, Kansas has had some pretty good defensive back play over the last few years. Four all Big 12 players. I think one was twice. So 3 different guys that got all Big 12 in the secondary. One guy that got it twice. And that's next to Ish Armistead, who is also known to be an instrumental recruiting tool, a really, really likable dude that the players really like. And you have that duo in a position of relative need at defensive back. Talk about him. Talk about how you're feeling about attacking the needs at defensive back and corner. And then after that, I want to talk about the O-line a little bit before I let you go, Theo.
I actually love the hire, especially him being an A&M guy.
For sure.
Who played at A&M. He knows what we're looking for. He knows the environment. He knows how to sell it. And he did. He got a 4-star DB to go to Kansas.
That's crazy.
And not just any 4-star. I think he was like a top 20 DB.
Yeah.
To go to Kansas.
Right.
So, I mean, and that's something we haven't seen since maybe Aqib Talib went to Kansas in like 07, 08.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
and he's next to returning. Ish. He's with Ish, and Ish also has experience at A&M. He also knows the school. He knows the area. He knows the lingo. He knows the program. And you have those two leading the charge in the secondary.
and, and it really feels like it freed up. Like I feel like all of the hires that I feel like all the hires that Elko has hired has allowed him to be able to focus on the head coaching duties and not the position coaching duties.
Sure.
Whereas I feel like maybe Jimbo was too worried about the position coaching versus what he had to do as a head coach and instilling that discipline and that integrity and stuff like that.
Exactly. And
If that makes
no,
sense.
that makes total sense. I mean, think about his first, what was it, 5 years with Dickey as the OC. I always joked that I didn't really know what Dickey did because Jimbo called the plays. We're running Jimbo's offense. What was Dickey even doing? I mean, besides making relationships and recruiting and all that. But now, one of the highlights that the insiders were saying about Elko is that he truly lets his coaches coach. He gets out of their way. But he also sets up a great structure for everybody to succeed in the organization, the accountability, and we're seeing that. Now, a couple other highlights on defense. Gary Mertens in the chat just said, as we mentioned earlier, each coaching hire is an upgrade. And I think off the top of my head, that might be true, but the only area that I would think maybe not is going from Terry Price and Elijah Robinson. Those are two of the best on paper. If you go to 247's recruiting, those are two of the best all-time recruiters on their server. I mean, especially E-Rob. I think he might be number one. It's crazy as a position coach, as the primary recruiter. But you're replacing him with Sean Spencer. That's a guy that's been around. It's a guy who brings like some pedigree into the program. It's not like you're replacing him and starting fresh. You're getting someone solid in there. And then also the other assistant who got promoted to a defensive line coach, Tony Gerard-Eddy, he's a great relationship guy, a great up-and-comer. I kind of get like the Ish Armistead vibe from him, where he's just kind of like that other extra voice in some of the recruiting battles, a guy that really forms relationships with players. I think it's another good potential duo there in terms of coaching and recruiting. But then you think about the staff as a whole, you lose a lot of guys, but then you get guys like Trooper Taylor who bring years of SEC and running back coaching experience. I mean, Holman Wiggins, I think he still has some to prove in his coaching career in terms of long-term development. But when you get a guy from the Bama school and you get a guy who has coached some of the best receivers we've ever seen, that's a big deal. I mean, you got a bunch of needle movers in this program, and I want to talk a little bit about the O-line, a little bit. And guys, we're going to get in depth with this on my next show tomorrow. Y'all will see. But I want to talk just briefly with you, Theo, about I'm blanking on names as usual. The O-line coach from Duke. Can you help me out?
Hmm. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but yes, I know exactly
Cushing,
who you're
Adam
talking about.
Cushing. Yeah, yeah.
Cushing.
So if you guys didn't know, 15 years of O-line experience at Northwestern before being Elko's O-line coach at Duke. And if you hear this guy talk, he's a very calculated, very down-to-earth, very logical kind of person, which to me contrasts with what Adazio was before, which whatever that was, it wasn't working. So I think getting him, and then obviously Tommy Moffitt, we could talk for hours about Tommy Moffitt, how much he moves the needle by himself, and then Colin
Right.
Klein's new scheme, all that together. I mean, what do you think that equates to on the offensive line, plus the experience they'll have next year?
So I really feel like Klein is going to be able to protect the offensive line if he needs to. Klein has easy buttons in his offense. He's able to dump it off to the running back when he needs to, or feed the slants, feed the short seams, feed the play action, feed the short routes if he has to, the bubble screens, the tunnel screens, the variation of screens that he could run is ridiculous, and it is ridiculous that he does run. So with Klein being as smart as he is in terms of that, to go along with Cushing, teaching, yes, it's Northwestern, but hello, Rashawn Slater went to Northwestern. Look what he's done. He's been able to take underrated players, and we'll say underrated because these are guys that are not highly recruited, at both Northwestern and Duke and has turned them into first round ideal offensive linemen for the NFL. You got Barton, who's being talked as the number one center in this year's NFL draft, as well as like the number 6 or 7 left tackle, if he was to stay at left tackle. You have Rashawn Slater and a host of other underrated Northwestern offensive lineman that, yeah, he didn't necessarily produce one every year like you would expect from like an Alabama or something like that that gets those recruits, but he consistently pumped out at least, if I'm not mistaken, when I looked up his stats, Cushing had what, 6 NFL offensive linemen in his time at Northwestern? In 15 years, 6 offensive linemen at a school that doesn't get elite recruits is rare.
Right.
And then he did it at Duke. He has 2 offensive linemen at Duke that are going to be in the NFL. And it's just him to go along with Moffitt, to go along with Klein and the way they're going to attack things. I really feel like they can play off of each other and be like, okay, we're struggling here in this game. Can we get this quick game going?
Right.
Can we get this play action going? Can we feed off of the quick game to create a deep shot? You know, and I really feel like things like that can be communicated between the two. And I don't feel like either one is stubborn in what they want to do.
Yep.
With the wide receiver coach, I'm not worried about him. He has proven time and time again to be one of the best wide receiver coaches in the nation. I'd put him right there up there with the guy at Ohio State in Hartline. How many other guys has produced a Heisman wide receiver?
It's very true. It's very true. That was a 1-year deal, but he did produce him. He still did. He still was the coach for the Heisman receiver. It's true.
And if I'm not mistaken, it goes all the way back to, it goes even back further to like the Henry Ruggs era. Like this guy has
Holman Wiggins. Was he there for that? He became the coach the year Devontae won the Heisman.
I thought he was there before that. I thought he like recruited Devontae.
I'm looking into it right now. I'll look up his exact year. I think it was Devontae and Jamison Williams were his 2 big-time players that he coached. The reason I'm not concerned, but I just think he has a little bit to prove in the long-term development because we didn't see, and part of this is not just the receiver's fault at Bama, but we didn't see anybody emerge over the last couple of years as a go-to guy like we had seen in years prior at Bama. And I'm not saying he's bad. I'm not saying he doesn't have it. I'm just saying he still has to prove that. He still is a great recruiter, and he still is a great, solid coach. I mean, you just said it. He coached a Heisman receiver. No one does that. That's amazing. Let me look up the year, though.
Because I thought it went all the way back to the first trio. Okay, so 19.
Yeah, he wasn't part of the full lineage. He was in the tail end of that really high-end Bama lineage that ended with Jameson.
Okay.
But still, it's still those 2 alone are really, really good deals because first of all, Heisman level play from a receiver, and then Jamison Williams, he didn't make the cut at Ohio. That's his name, right? Jamison Williams. He didn't make the cut at Ohio State. He left Ohio State because he wasn't playing there. He comes to Bama, and he's one of the best receivers in the country. That's a great short track record.
And then if I'm not mistaken, you have the kid in Houston that had cancer last year. The Texans wide receiver was at Bama too. I can't think of his name.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
I'm not down on Holman Wiggins at all. I'm not down at all. I just think he's less proven than some of the names here, but I think he's as good a guy you could have gotten in this coaching search. I want to address a couple of the chat while I have you, Theo, so you can address this stuff too. Duke says LSU has somewhat of a friendly schedule in 2024. Well, you know what I like to do? I like to look at college football schedules. So let's look at LSU's schedule next year. We did a show about schedules last week, but I already forgot it. Maybe they do, but even so, it's an SEC schedule, and my gut says 8 or 9 wins, maybe less. All right, let me put it on the screen for y'all. And Theo, you can look too. So USC neutral field. I do feel like LSU can win that game. I think LSU will take a step down. They weren't that good last year, even with Caleb. But
That's still a toss up to me.
yeah, it could. They could lose the game. They could definitely lose the game. But I mean, I think right now my gut says LSU, but I would need to look closer at the matchup. UCLA at home, maybe on the road it'd be a toss up. Maybe LSU can defend home turf. But I mean, at South Carolina, Ole Miss, at Arkansas, at A&M, Bama, and OU, I'm not feeling confident in any of those for LSU right now.
Right. So I mean, like I said, with us, even with us, it's somewhere between that 7 and 9 range that I feel comfortable in. And then if everything goes right and everything clicks correctly, yeah, you can see 10, 11, 12 wins.
Right.
You
But
know?
the average right now would be lower than that, right? Like you would think
Right.
just if you're betting on the average, it'd be 8 or 9. That's kind of where I'm at. Similar to us, but different. It's like what, year 3? And he's
We're in
supposed to
year
be a
one.
really, really great coach. So I don't know. It is manageable though. It's a manageable schedule overall. But if it was a tough schedule, if it was Florida's schedule, I'd be looking at like a 7 or 6 win season. So
Yeah.
it's different.
And you have no idea what you're going to get out of UCLA. They
It's
they just
true.
replaced Chip. They just replaced Chip Kelly. So who's to say they don't get their guy and he clicks in year one?
Yeah.
Um, South Carolina. You don't think they're going to be hurt at South Carolina at
Right.
that? They're not looking for a big win there,
Yeah, and
considering that
I just
everyone's
mentioned
talking
it
about.
too. Shane Beamer's doing a pretty good job there. That a bad year last year, but the last 2 years they were doing things that no one expected from South Carolina, and he's been recruiting pretty well for South Carolina. So it's nothing to
Right.
scoff at. That kind of game. At Arkansas, weird things can happen there. I have a feeling they'll pack the stadium for an LSU.
Arkansas.
Yeah.
Arkansas almost beat them last year.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, they should have. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's going to be a touchy
I
year. We'll
mean,
see how it plays out. I mean, they recruit at the level to where any year they could turn it on, but based on what we know and what they're losing, it's looking tough. But anyway, let's move on to the next one. Gary says, I'm glad to hear the talking heads speak out on the current state of college football. Hopefully that's not just because their expected status is being threatened. No, I think they're speaking out because they love college football, and I think the state of it right now is not one that's extremely healthy for the long-term outlook of the
I
sport. What
I
do you
don't
think?
even know what I don't even know what this sport's going to be in 3 years,
Right.
5 years.
Right.
Like seriously, for me, it's I'm riding with A&M, but then I don't know what's going on after that
Yeah.
because you have Florida State trying to push to get out of the ACC. You have rumors that the Big Ten is looking at A&M out of the blue.
That's crazy. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, you have the whole Mountain West Conference, just sitting there. You you could snatch up Oregon State and Cal and Stanford if you wanted to, and really try to push a new Pac-12 with the Mountain West Conference.
Sure.
But then you got the Big 12. They did well to recover to pick up the Arizona and Utah schools, but
You just
what did
don't
they
know. It's
lose?
all in flux, man. It's crazy.
It's just and then on top of that, you have all these investigations. You have Florida under investigation for samples last year, and then you have or Rashada last year, and then you have Nico under investigation at Tennessee this year. Not to mention Iowa just self-reported tampering tonight.
Yeah.
That just broke. So like,
With
where we?
the tackle out of Bama.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I imagine that
So
happens way more than what is being reported.
and so where do we go with this until there's an actual like antitrust union that everyone signs and says, hey, you can't do this to our guys like they do in the NFL. Where are we gonna go?
I know. I know. It's
Our
crazy, man.
and
We'll see. There is a lot more structure that has to be added over the coming years, but with how weak the NCAA has appeared recently, I don't know how they're going to accomplish anything. It's weird, man. I mean, it's different. At the end of the day, I'm still happy when the kickoff happens for your team on Saturdays, but it's getting kind of gross, and we're lucky to be in associated with such a strong program as far as the structure, the infrastructure, because there are like some mid-level programs like the whole Big 12 who have a lot of pride, who have had a lot of good years over the last 20 years or so, who are going to be in no man's land pretty soon, especially if realignment keeps favoring two conferences. So
Hmm.
it's weird, man. I really hope someone steps up, some kind of structure is added. I don't know, man. All right, next comment. Okay, Tyler Eubanks has a couple of comments, and I'm glad he did comment because it's gonna get us talking a little bit. Good to see you, by the way, Tyler. Always glad to have you in here. He says, I mean, Elko should have grabbed a starting center, a starting offensive tackle, a vet SEC linebacker, a 6'2 wide receiver, an H-back, and a fullback to replace Max Wright and Ernest Caranover. Other than that, it's a decent class. Okay, so I will concede that a fullback, H-back, would have been nice, and I think they still need to do that for sure because they did lose both of
We
those
got
guys.
one.
Who did we get?
The Purdue kid.
Oh, is he going to play that? Okay.
That's what I foresee him playing. And then you still have Theo on the roster who can play that position. You still got, um, Jaden Platt that can play that position. You, I would like more of a thumper at running back.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. I think you have a tight end like a Max Wright replacement. I think you can do that. You can do that with
Right.
Donovan. You can do that with Platt. You can do that with any of the tight ends. I think they can all fill that role. I do agree. You probably need, like you said, the thumper, the low squatty running back, kind of a hybrid guy that can block. I'm trying to look for the Purdue guy. Here he is. Nope,
The
that's
Bailey kid.
well. There's Garrett Miller, the tight end, and then Ryan
Hmm.
Bailey. You're talking about Ryan Bailey from last year?
Yeah, we're missing the Bailey
Yeah,
type
we're
kid.
missing the Bailey type kid who could have played. Um, yeah, I don't know about. I know there are guys on the team that can do what Max Wright did. I know there are a lot of tight ends can do what Max Wright did. I don't know if they're going to bring the Max Wright intangibles, but I think yes, there's still a need for that running back style guy. But as far as the O line guys you mentioned, Tyler, yes, obviously any of those would have been nice. Any of those would have been nice. But
But
I
but
am.
then,
Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna say, but then again, who's really out there that's a starting center caliber in the SEC?
That's right. Those are really, really hard to come by. The starting center that went to Ohio State, he's apparently not even going to play center anymore because he can't snap the ball. Um, but I'm of the belief with this O line that there is talent, and this is bear with me here. There is talent on this O line. I think this O line has enough experience, enough bodies that with the right atmosphere can be successful. We saw some of these guys that, let's just be real, that kind of sucked this year be a lot better in 2021. Foster and Fothery. Even guys like Layden Robinson fell off. The only guy that we saw that was consistent on the O line this year was Trey Zune, in my opinion. But I think a
Hmm.
lot of this has to do with your strength and conditioning, the mentality of your football team, toughness, athleticism, being in better shape, better scheme, better coaching. And I think a lot of that aspect of it really got addressed in obviously the coaching turnover. But I think this O line group gives you enough options to find players, whether it's Naboo or Foster, whoever can play center. I don't feel like that was a do or die grab. Obviously, any of those would have been great. But I think with the coaches, with Moffitt, with new scheme, the current guys at O line can be successful. And yeah, we know Bailey graduated. We were just kind of mentioning him in passing.
The one thing that hurts me is Echoes going to LSU because Echoes wants to play center. He understands that his position is center at the next level,
Right.
and he would have been there to push Naboo and Bryce Foster for playing time at center. Everywhere else, we go about three deep.
Yeah.
Everywhere,
Yeah.
even at tackle now, we picked up one from the portal, and then we picked up the Duke kid. So now at tackle, you still have three deep at tackle on both sides. You go three deep at guard on both sides, and you go two deep at center. Where do you get these guys? Now I understand that we have a bad taste of what we saw from these guys last year, but we also got to consider everything we know about what happened last year and what they were asked to do,
Yeah,
and and give them the opportunity to make a difference. But
absolutely.
even at that, it's not like they're hurting for talent. The talent is there.
That's what I think. That's what I think about the O line too. I think so. I thought the talent was there last year, but we just saw guys regress, man. We just saw it. We saw them not only underperform but go backwards. I mean, freshman Bryce Foster was better than the Bryce Foster we saw last year. Would you agree with that, Theo?
I would, but then you got to take into account he's coming back from an ACL injury that happened
Very true. Very true.
week six of the season before.
Yeah.
So from week six the season before to the week six of this season, you're technically still in your recovery phase.
Yep. And I'm not here to excuse bad play at all. That's not what I'm trying to do. But I do think
Exactly.
there are paths for improvement because the talent, like you said, the talent and the size is there. So
Eh,
that's how I feel about the O line. They did go grab an unexpected tackle in this recruiting cycle from Duke. That was a huge surprise. That was awesome to see. That was needed.
And then
Go ahead.
and then you still got the kid in the recruiting class from early signing day from down there in the Houston area, if I
Blake
remember
Ivy.
correctly. Blake Ivy. So you're set with two freshman tackles for the future. You had, two freshman guards as well, the Colton Thomas kid and the other guy. Um, then you still on top of that, you still had guys from last year that you didn't see, like and Papa Afua.
Yep.
And then you still got guys like um, Funk that we didn't get to see last year. We still got guys like Cam DeBerry that we haven't really seen a full season of. We it's just we have so much there to play with on the offensive line. We just got to figure out who's the best five and who's going to keep improving as the season goes along.
Yep. And as I've been saying on this show, and I'll keep saying it, we're going to, I mean, if you keep watching the show throughout the offseason, guys, you're going to hear me tell the same story a couple times because the storylines are what they are, and the roster is kind of getting set somewhat. I think Gary just said it right now. Don't forget, February is going to be, or the spring transfer portal is going to be crazy again. We'll talk about that in a second. I don't remember where I was going with this, but there are a lot of options on the O line. There's a lot of options, and don't forget Ashton Funk. He was the longest tenured commitment on this program for 2024. He was the first of the 2024, I think, and he stuck through to the end. Huge guy. I mean,
Hmm.
you never know what any of these guys can develop into. They didn't get the O-line class they thought they were going to get, but they put one together, man. They got a full O-line class, and they got a bunch of corners and defensive backs. They addressed the two biggest needs on this team going into next year. And that's what I was saying.
Hmm.
You're going to have competition at the O-line. The cream will rise to the top. You have competition at corner. The cream will rise to the top, at least for what we have now. But of course, we have bigger aspirations. We want to win a championship here. I'm still thinking like 10, 11 might be the ceiling on this team next year. You never know. I think realistically you could win 12 games, so I don't even know why I'm saying this. But realistically speaking, like what we think is possible, I think 10 wins would be a really good year. We're looking bigger beyond that, and I think the recruiting class sets you up to where you have potential to find some for the future too within this class. But I'm not so worried about that for next year yet, Tyler, relative to I'm not thinking it's going to cause this team games at this point like it did last year. I think it's going to be improved from
Hmm.
that. But is it going to be good enough? That's a good point. So we'll see. One more thing I want to bring up, and I think we can end the show here pretty soon, Theo, but one thing I want to bring up, and I guess we'll ask the chat too, because Gary kind of just mentioned it right now. February moves and spring football will provide more opportunities. It absolutely will. We'll see who rises to the top. We'll get a bunch of view of the current roster right now. But I'm wondering how much more this roster is going to change after spring because I'm wondering if guys you got in the portal now, if they don't have a direct path to playing time, that if they might transfer again after spring, I wouldn't put that behind the current landscape of football. So that works both ways. That's going to happen at a lot of programs. Guys are going to leave after spring after they see the depth chart kind of build a shell of itself because you're not going to know for sure what the depth chart is until game one. But based on the temperature, you could see a lot of portal activity in spring, guys. It's going to move a lot. So, Tyler, those guys you're saying are available now, they're going to be even more available in spring. Hopefully they fill the specific needs we're talking about, another receiver, that squatty running back. I don't know. Theo, do you expect a lot of fireworks in spring as in terms of the portal?
I think it'll be a lot of depth guys um, that hit the portal. I don't think it'll be a lot for us. I can see like three or four.
Yeah.
Some of the lower ranked guys that we picked up as depth pieces early in the portal period. Um, but I'm especially if we get the kid that committed to Arkansas, I'm pretty much set. Like if you get Bussey and the kid that committed to Arkansas,
Yeah.
I'm set at wide receiver. At linebacker, I'm not worried about linebacker. I'm really not. Yes, we're going to have growing pains there because of our inexperience, but I'm not worried about that because of who the coach is at the linebacker position and then who also is the head coach. Like, that's a lot of experience between those two to help get these young kids in position. And the young kids are extremely, extremely talented. I don't know if you watched the Polynesian Bowl, but there was a whole drive that Lockhart, and I know I've pumped Lockhart a lot over the last few months that we've talked,
Yep.
but Lockhart literally destroyed a drive on his own as a linebacker.
Beast.
It's the same thing we saw Sanford do last year, and these are kids that need playing time. They're going to need to be able to develop. And if you go out there and get a plug and play guy in the portal that, may be a 1 year guy and may not be as good as these kids are, but is experienced, then you may have just put yourself back a year or two in development where these kids could be sophomores and juniors pushing for Benedart and Buckus award winning positions instead of forcing them to wait till their junior senior seasons to do that. I mean, look at York. Look how York is being touted as one of the best leaders in all of college football and assigned to the leadership council,
Yeah, it's crazy.
you know? And if he didn't play last year, would we have even known he was this good?
Right. There are so many possibilities for that starting spot at linebacker in the linebacker rotation. I mean it's not a full positional need, it's a one of two positional need because you have York, but it's the same concept, right? It's another position where you feel good about a battle. It's another position where you feel good about iron sharpening iron through both camps. There are just a lot of options at linebacker right now. And of course, Tyler, I mean, it would have been nice if there was like a plug and play Nick Scorton like that was available, but the need I think was more significant at defensive end than linebacker right now. I think you needed a starter caliber at defensive end just because of what you lost. At linebacker, there
Mm-hmm.
are a lot of bodies in there. I mean, we don't know. It could prove to be a weakness, but long term, I think it'll be a strength. I think linebacker is good for the next. I mean, maybe not right away, but 25 through 28, I'm feeling good about linebacker, especially with some of the recruiting we're doing at the position right now. So, last thing before we go, just a quick look at this Ashton Bethel Roman out of Arkansas. You can see what he's rated 92 out of the composite in the composite rating, 94 by 247. I don't think he's a play right away guy because can you see the number why he wouldn't be a play right away guy? He weighs 165 pounds at 6 foot and a half. That's kind of light, but still the guy you need in the program because you're very shallow. You don't have a lot of young guys at wide receiver, right? You don't have a lot of projects at receiver right now. You have Tees, and then you have the incoming Ernest Campbell, but you need some guys like this to let cook in your program to kind of build for the future. So this would be huge. And by all reports, by all insiders, we're the favorite right now.
There's one other kid we picked up out of the 24 class that plays wide receiver that wasn't Campbell. And then you pick up Roman, and then you pick up Terry, and now you got four freshmen to go along with Tees and your four senior classmen, um, or four starters, I would call, because there's no way I can take Jade and not let him start sometimes. No way I can't take Moose and let him start some game. No way I can't take um, Noah and let him start some game. You know what I mean? There's just you with them four, you would have the perfect amount of youth and um, age that you don't have to force someone into play immediately. Now, if they show up and rise to the top
Yeah.
to go along with our transfer kids, you're now talking about 8 to 10 legit wide receivers on the roster.
Right. Right.
You know,
Yeah. And you have it,
so
if you get some young guys, like we're thinking, you're going to have it fleshed out for the future and for now. Because I think we're feeling really good about our starting receivers next year, right? Like we feel good about them. I don't think we feel like we're bringing a top 5 receiver room in the country, but you never know. They could develop into that. It has that kind of a ceiling, but you at least feel good about the receiver room. You want to see that thing get more fleshed out, of course. And then the last question of the night, who is linebacker 2, you think? So if I had to guess, so last year, just remember, we saw a very, very tight rotation. It was Cooper played pretty much the whole game. He would sit out maybe a half a drive per half, right? Like he played most snaps in every game. Even Torian played most snaps throughout a game. Next year, I do think they loosen up that rotation. I think we'll see more of a 4-man, maybe 5-man rotation at linebacker, at least in spells. If I had to bet, I'd say Damian Samford is the starter, but you see Scooby Williams play. That's his name, right? Scooby Williams. And then I think you'll see a freshman play, whether it's Lockhart, who I think has a real good chance to play, because you've been on him longer than I have, but I think he's a specimen. He looks much more ready than a guy his age and his rating you would think look. And you don't never know what a Jernigan could do. Don't forget Martrell Harris. He's still on the team. He was in the rotation 2 years ago. Didn't play much this year. And I wonder if that's because you had such good players at the top. Who knows what's happening there. But I do know we've had good reports from Samford since day one. Of course, York's had glowing reviews since day one. But Samford's also had good reviews from guys who are seeing practice. So if I had to bet, I would say Samford. What would you say, Elko? I'm Elko. Theo. You want to be Elko tonight?
God, I wish.
I have Elko all over my screen right
here. That's a dream in itself.
Yeah, that's a great job to have.
But honestly, it depends on what we decide to run and when we run it and what we decide to come out to. Because I can see us running a 3-4. I can see us running a 4-4, because you have guys like, Nick Wright, who can play one of those outside linebacker positions.
You could stand up Ian White. You could stand up Scylla. You could stand those guys up, and they can be kind of on that outside linebacker rusher. Yeah.
You got Scranton, who can stand up as well. There's so much flexibility in our defensive system and the players we have that my bet would probably be Harris to start the year.
You think Martrell Harris?
Just because I think he has a little bit of experience.
Yeah.
In Elko.
Yep.
Considering that Elko recruited him here. And then he's had more playing time than the others. But then you still got, Scooby Williams there. You can put Wright there.
That's crazy.
You could put Stanford there. You could put there was another linebacker we were high on last year that wasn't York, that people thought was better than Stanford. And I can't think of his name right now. And then you still got Jernigan, and you still got and I thought we had one more 4-star linebacker. I thought we pulled in 3 4-stars
in this year's class as a true freshman. There's Jernigan. Did you already mention him?
Jernigan, Lockhart, and I thought there was one more. I know the Jasper kid left.
Yeah. Now, I want to say this, though. I mean, obviously, we're looking at it in a positive light. There is a chance that room is a work in progress. I would bet if you're going to see it, you're going to see a slow start at the linebacker room, if anything. Because more than likely, I mean, you're going to probably see someone with minimal experience starting next to York, unless it's Scooby Williams.
Right.
But I think the long-term prognosis for the room is very positive right now. That's kind of what I would say for that room. And it still has to work out. You still have to see it play out. You can't just say that and it happens. It has to pan out. But I feel good about the room. I feel good about the room. But I mean, sure, if you could find a guy like that's a high level day one starter, I mean, yeah, why not? But I don't know if that was there. Last one I want to thing from Tyler that he said. I thought he said, "Oh, Wiggins couldn't get Bond to A&M." Yeah, he couldn't, but I understand Bond wanting to go play for Sark. He could go pro next year. You could have one great year under Sark, who's known to have really good receivers. I get it. I get Bond going to Sark. I know Wiggins couldn't get him. I know Wiggins couldn't get him to follow him to A&M, but I mean, if he's going to leave the program, he wants to do what's absolutely like the best surefire bet for his future. I don't blame A&M for not. I understand a guy like that going to Sark where there's an opening at receiver. So I'm not. Plus, I'm not losing sleep over Isaiah Bond. I'm really not. I don't know if I don't look at him as like a 5-star talent, even though he was a 5-star. Anyway, Theo, anything else before I let you go tonight? It was a great long call. It was the Theo show tonight. We've done this with Jeb before. We did it with my brother last week. When a regular gets on, not as many callers tonight. We have a good time, man. It was good to have you. Any closing thoughts? I guess Theo's gone for the night, and the timing worked out great. So, Theo, if you're watching this later, you can still hear me. Thanks for having you tonight. Thanks for being here tonight, man. It was great having you tonight. You have a great night. I hope to hear back from you in the very soon after early signing day next week. So, guys, it was good to talk to you guys tonight. Excited about early signing day. I'm really hoping we get Bussey. Jackson, at the beginning of the show, I talked about Bussey. I put it at I'm 70% sure he signs with A&M. I feel like it's going to be A&M. But unfortunately, I would not be surprised if it was LSU. That's just the unfortunate truth. They've put a good push together, and A&M's dealing with coaching turnover. Jimbo's staff recruited Bussey for years. So that's just what happens when you lose a coach, and it's a different coaching staff trying to make up for lost time. But I still feel like A&M's the favorite there. He hasn't wavered according to insiders. So, guys, thanks for being here tonight. It was a good show, fun show. I'll see you guys back next week. It's either going to be Wednesday or Thursday. It's based on my schedule. I will let you guys know before the show comes out, and we'll go from there. But until then, guys, enjoy the weekend. Enjoy signing day. Hopefully it's a good one. Let's get Bussey. Thanks for being here.